Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this card. This card is an easel card, and so it comes up and then sits against this little sentiment that I have down here at the bottom. And I'm going to turn it this way so you can see what it looks like. And the card stands up then, and when it's folded down you have just this image on top, and then when it folds up it tucks behind the sentiment, and there's room inside to put your greeting. And I didn't do any other stamping or decorating in here. I might still do that, but I wanted to show you how I made this card. So let me tell you the pieces that you need to use to make this card. We need a Night of Navy base that is 8.5 by 5.5, and it's scored twice. It's scored once at 4 1/4, and it's scored a second time at 2 1/8. And then we need a piece of Night of Navy that is 4 by 5 1/4, and then we need one more piece of Night of Navy that is 3 1/4 by 1 inch. Then we need a piece of silver foil, and this silver foil is 4 1/4 by 5.5. So it literally covers the whole front of this half of the card. Then we need a piece of silver foil that is 1 1/4 by 3 1/2, and that is going to hold this piece that's going to hold our sentiment. Then we need a pretty decent size bit of scrap to cut out all of the elements that are here. Let me tell you about what stamp sets and die sets I'm using. I'm using the new Carols of Christmas, and this is a die set and stamp set. Let me show you the stamp set as well. The stamp set has this very large Peace on Earth and Deck the Halls, and it's got stamps with holly and leaves and a floral thing here and ornaments, and a very pretty stamp set. And then this is the die set that accompanies it, called Card Front Builder Thinlet Dies. And this thinlet set has this element here, which is what I used to cut around the edge of this card. And what I did was I used it once on one side and then once on the other to get this frame. Then I used this die here. Let me see if I can get that off of there. This die, which is sort of the moon and the stars decoration that's here, and I cut that out of the piece one side, cut the frame. Then I used the two trees. There's a single tree and a double tree, and I used both of these dies, and then I used the little deer to cut out the couple of deer that are on here. So that's what I used, and like I said, this is called Card Front Builder Thinlet Dies, and this is Carols of Christmas, and together they are a bundle, and when you buy them together you save 10%. So it's definitely something to consider. All right, now let me move some of this out of the way. The sentiment that I have here says, "May your Christmas sparkle with joy and happiness." And this is a set that's in the current annual catalog that came out last year, Christmas Pines, and I'm using the sentiment here, "May your Christmas sparkle with joy and happiness." I liked it for its size, and then embossed it here. So that's what I used to make this. And so let's just get started with this. And to save a little bit of time, I've already cut my pieces. So here is my, oops, I see a little piece that didn't pop out. This is the frame where, I'm going to lay this down on the white so you can see it. I think you can see that. Yeah, so here's the frame cut out around the edge. And then the only thing I will tell you is that sometimes when you put these dies down and you run them on your Big Shot, there's so much pressure that they leave an indentation that picks up the edges of this. And I don't know if you can see that on the back of this card. Maybe if I move it in the light, it leaves an edge. So what I did was I ran mine on the back side, and then this is the side I'm using. That way I don't see any of that indentation. And it has to do with the amount of pressure that the machine puts on your paper as it's running it through. So let's see. So I have this piece here, and what I'm going to do is take my card base here, and I am going to really burnish these score lines, because I want the card to lay as flat as possible and make this bend as good as we can. Now, the basis of an easel card is just this. It is just the simple card base that we normally use, and this is scored so that it folds in half. Then you're going to put something down here that causes it to tuck behind, and that's what you get with an easel card. So, and I'm changing this one up just a little bit. When I put this card together, I think you can see I've got kind of a white border here, and no place else did I have white border, and frankly, it bothered me. So I cut my new piece for this piece to be as big as the card front, so that when I put this on here, I'll get a frame around the whole thing, and it'll attach to here and cover the whole card. No white base. And I did this one on a white base and added the navy. So on this one I decided to just do it on a navy base because there's so little white that I would just add the white. And it occurs to me I didn't put that in the beginning, but we need a little piece of white here at the top, and we'll measure and cut that to have a place to write your sentiment. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is adhere this piece to the silver. Now, you can, if you're careful, once you've cut this out here, you can cut some of these pieces out of the silver here. I would say to make sure that your paper isn't marred, your silver isn't marred by running it through the Big Shot, take a piece of clean copy paper, and when you lay your dies down on it, put the piece of copy paper over the whole thing, and that way if you've got a little bit of something on your cutting plate, it won't, or scratches, it won't mar your foil. And so you can do it such that you can actually get, let me just see what we could get out of this. Certainly you could get your two little deer if you did one here and one here, and you could, let me see how I could arrange that so that, could you get all of it out of there? I don't know, maybe. You certainly could get your couple of trees. You would just have to watch that when you're putting these down to cut, they don't interfere with any of the places that show from underneath. And again, I would use that plain piece of copy paper so the rest of your foil isn't marred or marked up that might show underneath all of this. And then you'd need only a small piece of scrap to cut out your other your other reindeer. Okay, so that's a thought that you could perhaps do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere this to my card, and I'm going to use a little bit of Tombow. This little rim around the edge is fairly narrow, and I want to make sure that I just get a little glue in some of those places, and not a lot. So let me see if I can get this Tombow running here. And use a piece of scratch paper to see if I got it going, but good there. Okay, so now I can use that to just dot along here. So there we go. We have our panel put on the silver. Nice and simple. Okay, now then I'm going to add some glue to the front of this panel, and I'm going to come close to the edges, but I want to keep below this score mark here. And then I'm going to adhere this, and the way I'm going to do that, because this is a complete coverage, this is what I was thinking of a minute ago, and so I'm going to line that up flush with that against my table, and then lay it down and make sure that those edges are right on. I'm going to let Tombow get a grip there for a second. And you can see now this is how the card will stand. And I think I like it much better when the silver border goes all the way to the edge of the card. Kind of takes out all of that other stuff. Okay, so now I have this piece that I want to put in down here, I think, next. So I have my piece of Night of Navy. This was the one that's 1 by 3 1/4. I have my stamp mounted that says, "May your Christmas sparkle with joy and happiness." And I have my Versamark ink here. So I want to also take my embossing buddy and make sure this little piece of card is covered before I emboss. Okay, so there's my stamp, and I'm going to put my Versamark on here and make sure I get plenty of Versamark here. It's kind of fun to do the first Christmas card of the season. Feels a little odd just because it's so warm outside. Okay, so I'm going to try and get this centered right on here and give this a good press down. Now I really should have used my Pierce mat to give that some cushion. Hopefully I'll be able to get away with it here. It looks pretty good. Okay, so I have some silver embossing powder here, and I'm going to take my piece of card and cover that, and there I've got my sentiment then covered. Put my embossing powder away, and I will be ready then to go ahead and emboss this. So here's my gun, and I'll quiet the video while I do this. Okay, so there's my embossing completed on there. I have a little bit of a rough edge here. I'm going to use one of my sanding blocks here to take that off. Okay, and I'm going to use snail on this piece here. And then center this so that it's got a little bit of a border all the way around. And on this, I'm using dimensionals, and I'm going to do double dimensionals. And so I'll show you here what these first do. I'm going to put the dimensionals down and peel off the backing. Then I'm going to take a second dimensional and place it directly on the top of the first one on both of these. And then, so I'll get double height on that when I put it in place. Okay, so there I have my sentiment mounted and raised. And what I'm going to do is center it right here along the bottom, leaving a little bit of a margin and getting it as close to the center as I can. And you can see now that this will just tuck behind that when it stands. And when we get a few more things on it, the more things you have on this panel, the heavier it gets, and the more it stays in place once you set it up as an easel. Okay, so then we're going to add the other pieces that I have cut out here. And I have cut out my trees. So I have a single tree and a pair of trees, and I've cut out 2 of the little deer. And so I'm going to lay this flat, and I'm going to set both regular size dimensionals and mini dimensionals on the back of these embellishments to get them put into place. Okay, so now I'm going to see about placement here, and I'm going to put this first tree right down here along the bottom edge, right about here, and set that in place. And then I'm going to tuck one of the deer right behind it there. So I'm going to put one of the deer right there. Then the second trees, I'm going to move over to the other side a bit. You can put more trees on if you'd like. All you have to do is just cut a few more. I've seen some where people have put, 2 single trees, 1 flat, 1 raised, and then double trees around. And so there's all different kinds of things. And this I'm going to set right here, and then I'm going to take my other deer and put him in place right here in the middle. And there we have our project for the day, almost. We have one more little piece that I need to do, and I need to cut a piece of white to put the sentiment here. And so I need to cut a piece of white 5 1/4 by 2 1/2. Okay, so this piece will just go right here, and that gives us a place to write our sentiment. So I'm going to add a little bit of snail and put that in place. And let's see, if I put that in place, let me get that centered. Okay, now this little stamp set, now that I'm thinking about it, has the little deer. So maybe what we'll do is take this deer out of here and put it on a block. Okay. I'm going to grab some Night of Navy ink, and I'm going to take our little deer. So I'm going to stamp that, ink that up, and very carefully put maybe a couple of deer here at the top of the card on the inside. So that is now the decoration that I've put on the inside of the card. Okay, so that is our project for the day, and I hope you'll give this a try. It's a lot of die cutting, and you have to be very careful with this perimeter die here, but it does result in an absolutely gorgeous frame. I love the frame on this, and I'm pretty pleased with this for my first Christmas card of the season. So there we have our easel card, and I suppose this one would be fine doing it on the white and just leaving a little bit of a border on here that would match. But I really do like this one that it has a complete coverage. You'll have to let me know what you think. You can purchase anything you see here from my website, www.lbettinger.stampinup.net. And thanks very much for stopping by my YouTube channel today to watch my video. I do appreciate it. And if you don't already have a demonstrator, I would love to be your demonstrator. People who order from me get card and gifts at the end of every month that they order, and or you could be on my team. And the details for joining my team are below. There's $99 for $125 worth of product that Stampin' Up! Always offers, and then I offer in addition another $40 worth of product from me for joining my team. And I'd love to have you join my team. So thanks again for watching, and I'll be back soon with more cards and projects. Bye!